Welcome back to the Draft Lab. We talked off the top about the top 10 wide receivers in the 2025 NFL Draft. Now we're going to give some superlatives out. Who has the best of each trait amongst the wide receivers in the NFL? We're going to start, though, with the NFL guys who have the best at each trait, so you can kind of get an idea of what we're talking about when we talk about these physical capabilities. So burst quicks is the very first one here, if we can pull up the NFL list. For me, the archetype for a guy who has that trait at the NFL level is Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens. A guy that just, if he's in front of you, he can get to the side of you in a blink of an eye and you don't know what just happened. Speed, obviously Xavier Worthy. When you run a 4.21 the way he did, he is the gold standard for speed in the NFL. Tyreek Hill, for a long time, obviously was, but giving that one Xavier Worthy. Ball skills, Amon-Ra St. Brown. The guy doesn't drop passes. He makes contested catches. Maybe he's not the guy you think of because he's not making acrobatic catches because he's playing the slot a lot, but he is as reliable as they come. Route running, I went with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I feel like the high-end route runners, the Stephon Diggses of the world, the Cooper Kupps, the Devontae Adams, they've all kind of aged out. I think Smith and Jigba is your next wave of those guys with what he put on tape this past fall for the Seattle Seahawks. Physicality, that's A.J. Brown. We're talking about guys who set the tone from a strength perspective, who are bullies at the wide receiver position. YAC, it's Ja'Marr Chase. The guy went absolutely insane this year. He has going with power. He can shake you. He can really do it all after the catch. And then body control. This is the Justin Jefferson special. This is the ability to just contort to where your body needs to go to make plays. Whether it's as a route runner, whether it's as a receiver with the ball in the air, it is the ability to just get to the exact point you want to go with relative ease. Justin Jefferson, the gold standard, in my opinion. B-Mac, I'd like to see your list, though, before we get to who the draft prospects are that we think fit the bill for all of these.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, I try to give you different names from the NFL side of things because Mike did a great job in assembling his perfect wide receiver. So I went a little different route. And, of course, with some categories, you had to go with the usual suspects. But quicks and bursts, I went Tank Dell. You know, you talk about the quickness of a squirrel in traffic. That's who Tank Dell is, also with a burst. So he is my definition when you look at quicks and burst. Speed, you got to go Xavier Worthy. Record at the Combine a year ago, I have to go Xavier Worthy. Ball skills, I went with the veteran, the OG. When you look at the wide receiver position, Devontae Adams, get this, he only had 6 drops in the National Football League, a top of the league in terms of drop rate. He was the best in not dropping the football. Route runner, I went Amon-Ra St. Brown, and here's why. When you look at his ability to create consistent separation, he do so because he knows how to run routes. He's not a 4-3. He's not a 4-4. He's not a guy who you consider to be one of the quicker guys in the wide receiver ranks in the National Football League. But his ability to attack angles and create separation puts him in as one of the best route runners in the National Football League. Physicality, Nico Collins. If you're 6'4", 220 plus, that's what you want at a wide receiver position, and I went Nico. YAC, of course, Ja'Marr Chase. He's been a guy who's known to take a 5-yard route and turn it into a 20, 30, 40, 60-yard touchdown game. Body control, I want the different structure of a wide receiver in T. Higgins because I love how he can control his 6'3", 6'4" frame, especially trying to attack the football at his highest point. He does that phenomenally, and I love what he brings into red zone efficiency sometimes when you have to manipulate your body in terms of tight, close-knit coverage in the red zone.
I love how you found different ones for all of them, but you're like, yeah, it's Ja'Marr Chase. If I go anywhere else for YAC right now, I'm lying. I'm lying to myself, which I agree with. Let's get to the prospects now. Who fits the bill for all of these? We'll start with the quicks aspect. Zay Flowers, I put as the archetype. Tank Dell, you as the archetype. And it's the guy we harped on in the first segment. It's Tez Johnson for me, the Oregon wide receiver. 5'10", in the 150s. He gets by at the collegiate level, and I think at the NFL level, because you can't touch him. Because the guy can be right in front of you. You can be in press man coverage, foot away from him, ready to strike at a moment's notice, and all of a sudden he's gone. And then all of a sudden you're like, how do I catch up? You can't. He's open. That guy gets open at will. That is his superpower, and he will be, in that tier 1 once he gets to the NFL with guys like Tank Dell and with guys like Zay Flowers, in my opinion.
I love that. I mean, there's no other guy you can go to when you talk about quicks in terms of college prospects. I'm right there with you with Tez Johnson.
All right, let's get to speed. little more debate here because there are some speedier wide receivers. I don't think there's a 4.2 guy in this draft class. Maybe Georgia's Arian Smith. He might be, but he's not really a top prospect. We're kind of focusing on guys who are going to play a role at the next level. So I went with Kyle Williams from Washington State. Now, I may have cheated a little bit because he had the fastest GPS time at the Senior Bowl, which is always a good thing when you are running over 21 miles per hour on that GPS. Guys who have done that before in Senior Bowl history, guys like Terry McLaurin in that mix, 4.3 guys. I fully expect Kyle Williams to run a 4.3 based off his tape. 17.1 yards per catch this past season. That guy has some real wheels. Who do you got for the speed?
Oh, man, for me, in speed, I went Isaiah Bond. I went Isaiah Bond, and here's why. I did a little inside information with Isaiah Bond because I know his trainer who's been training him. Number one, when you watch him at Alabama and at Texas, you know he's fast. But based on what I've heard, he potentially could be in the 4.2s.
Ooh.
It would be another Longhorn wide receiver in back-to-back combines dropping sub 4.2s if he goes out and do what they believe he's capable of doing. So Isaiah Bond is a name you will probably be talking about from every barbershop in America in terms of football conversation by next Monday if he goes out and do what they believe he's capable of doing and dropping a sub 4.2.
See, I wrote down all the 40s I guessed for these guys pre-combine here, just to see where I thought they'd be, just to like eyeball their tape versus what they end up putting up the combine. I had 4.35 for him. But last year at Alabama, before he transferred to Texas, I actually thought he was faster. I was like, this guy is for sure going to be like a 4.2 to 4.3 guy. The comp, I was like, this is the next Jalen Waddle. Now, he didn't put that on tape this past fall, in my opinion, but I don't think that capability went away. And so I do tend to agree with you. If you're going fastest wide receiver in this draft class, there's only two options. It's either Isaiah Bond or it's Kyle Williams, in my opinion. Those are your speed, deep threat, take the top off the defense sort of wide receivers. All right, the next trait, ball skills. And this is the one where Travis Hunter. There's a couple names that are at the top of the list, but Travis Hunter, what he's done over the course of his collegiate career, I believe he dropped 3 passes his entire collegiate career. The guy is just unbelievable. He high points it. He can off-target it. He really just suction cups for hands and big catch radius in terms of being able to go outside his frame. It just looks easy, man. And we're not even talking about the fact that the guy's vertical is going to be absolutely insane. The way he bounces off the ground is unique for that position, whether it's cornerback or wide receiver. I just haven't seen a guy with his level of just ability to go find the football. I mean, it is reminiscent of someone like a Justin Jefferson. It just truly is. So he could do this one. He could be number one for body control. He really has that about as good as it gets in this wide receiver class.
And one thing I want to hit on in terms of the information you provided us, with 3 drops in his collegiate career, we also have to remember the last two seasons at Colorado, he played both ways 100% of the time.
Yeah.
You have to understand how good of a pass catcher you have to be because you get tired in playing defense, playing offense. And the first thing that happens when you get tired physically is you lose focus.
Yeah.
Think about this for our viewers that are watching this, Mike. Go outside right now and try to catch 50 passes straight. When your arms get tired, when you start to get a little fatigued, the first thing you do is lose focus.
When you lose dexterity, too, like that, you lose, this starts to go. Try to write when you're super tired. It's hard.
And that's the thing. I gave you that example of viewers just standing straight up, catching 50 passes. Think about when you have to run and you have another body trying to stand in front of you and prevent you from going to where you need to go. So that's just phenomenal. That stat alone is phenomenal for him to know that he played both ways for 100% of the time, and he was going against a more than capable defender, yet and still he never lost focus or allowed fatigue to get into his game where he had untimely drops. And also, too, of course, I had him as best ball skills as well. That's the only answer for me.
All right, route running. I went on this one. A few different ways I could have gone, but I think Matthew Golden, he may not be the most polished route runner in this draft class, but he is the most capable in terms of the entire route tree. I watch his tape and I'm just like, he runs a slant well. He runs a comeback well. He runs a blaze out well. He runs all the routes that you could possibly ask an X wide receiver on the outside to run. he runs them at a high level already. Now, I don't think he's the most physically imposing. I don't think his combine is going to be anything otherworldly the way some of these other guys we've talked about is going to be. But that plays. There's a reason why he had almost a 70% catch rate when his average depth of target was 13.5 yards down the football field. He wasn't getting pumped screens. He wasn't getting pumped slot targets underneath. He was a downfield wide receiver and just creating gobs of separation. That's a guy who I trust to translate to the NFL. Where he ends up going, I don't know, but he's a really, really high floor route runner. And to me, I think ultimately ends up going in the first round because of that. Who do you think, in your opinion, is the best route runner?
For me, I went Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. And the thing I love about him, he creates separation. He creates separation. When you talk about some of the speed, quick guys that we will highlight as we get ready for the combine at the wide receiver position, we may not throw his name into that conversation. We're not saying he's slow, but clearly we don't view him as a 4.3-ish type guy. But he knows how to create separation because he knows how to run routes and attack angles. And similar to what my NFL player was in Amon-Ra St. Brown and his style and how he goes about his business. So I love Emeka, what he did, throughout his collegiate time there for the Buckeyes, playing inside, playing outside. All he did was create separation and found a way to come through with big-time reception. So I had him as my best route runner when you look at the college prospects that are getting ready to get drafted.
Yeah, Brian Hartline, the wide receiver coach for Ohio State, whatever he's making, guy's underpaid. Every single guy that comes out of there runs routes in their sleep. They just are so precise with their ability. All right, physicality. We agreed on this one. We don't have to spend too long. Jaden Higgins, the Iowa State wide receiver, not only has the size at 6'3", almost 220 pounds, but he does it consistently. He uses that physicality to get open, and he uses it at the catch point. 39 contested catches over the past 3 seasons. If you want that mold of wide receiver, he's the best in this draft class. There's no A.J. Brown, though. There ain't a guy who's that caliber, a wide receiver. Let's just get that out the way. Higgins, a nice day 2 option. YAC, we disagreed on. I went Luther Burden, the Missouri wide receiver. 30 broken tackles on 61 catches. Now, he was a guy who got pump screens, underneath stuff, handoffs, things of that nature. Is a pure YAC guy. You went a little differently. Who'd you go for this one?
Yep. I went with your guy, a guy you're extremely high. If you don't know anything about Mike right now, he really loves Kyle Williams from Washington State. So I went with him when it comes to YAC, and here's why. When you turn his tape on, Mike, and I know you watch so much film on Mr. Kyle, he turns a quick slant into a 60-yard gain, 40-yard gain, a bubble screen. I've yet to see one player tackle him. It's almost like he's playing in a can of oil because he's very, very slippery and he can make people miss. And the unique thing about him, you talked about what he did at the Senior Bowl. When you see him, he's not a physically imposing player, but he has a strong lower half and he has great contact balance. And he averaged 17 yards per reception. And it wasn't just because he was just running deep go balls and running behind people. Even though he did that, it was a lot to do with him catching short passes and turning them into big gains.
Yeah, Kyle, there is something to not only being able to break tackles, but then hit that crease and make that one broken tackle make you pay. And he's a guy that if he breaks one tackle, you could be in danger. And he broke 21 of them this past season on 70 catches. All right, last one. We agreed on body control. Ted McMillan, the Arizona wide receiver. If you've seen the highlight of him on Instagram where he catches the ball and then goes between his legs twice before he hits the ground.
Yes.
You know he's got something special in that regard. That's why he's probably going to be a top 10 pick at the end of the day.